Welcome to episode 100 of the podcast. For this episode, we reached out to our community for any questions they might have for us, AMA style. So in this episode, we're going to take a look back at the last 100 episodes and answer all the questions we received from our fantastic community. So let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
So Dylan, we made it.
We did. Despite all odds, we don't even like each other anymore. We hate each other. We just put on the show for the listeners.
Yeah, exactly. It's all a persona. We don't talk to each other at all during the week.
Exactly.
We have now reached the same milestone that LPF reached when it was sunsetted.
Yes, which means in 2 months, by algorithm magic, Amazon will pick up one of our podcasts and it'll blow it up.
Yeah, all of a sudden we'll have a bunch of downloads out of nowhere.
Yeah.
How do you feel? I mean, we did a kind of retrospective check-in type thing at episode 50, so I don't necessarily think we need to rehash those episodes, but how do you feel the last 50 episodes have gone?
I mean, I've enjoyed them. I've had a lot of fun, which I think is the important bit of it. Like, if we were not enjoying it, it would not be worth doing anymore. But I think we've had a lot of good episodes. Like, just kind of looking back at the list of like what we've done this past year, which is pretty much like, I mean, roughly since episode 50. Like, I think we've had a lot of just very cool ones, gotten to talk to some cool people. In this past year, we've had, Dearest Abby on, we've had Phil and Eric on, and Jay on. We had Keith from the Main Quest. We had Joe, friend of the show, Joe. We had Aubrey and Delaney come on to have our most downloaded episode.
I know. It's so crazy.
So, basically our podcast, like Spotify Wrapped, was like, hey, people really seem to like the cozy games episode. And so it's like, yep, which may not have actually been this now that I'm looking at it.
No, I think that came out in May.
Oh yeah. It's just been a lot of cool people, a lot of fun topics, I thought, as well. We talked about some big games too, which I know we were late to the party with all of them, or most of them. Like, we talked about Sekiro, we talked about Breath of the Wild this year,
Talked about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
And The Witcher 3, because I finally beat it this year.
We did. We did The Witcher 3, yeah. Some big games, yeah, for sure.
And, like, I guess also, like, not that we ever don't enjoy, like, just kind of BSing and talking about video games, but it's also been, like, just a banger year for video games, which is always, like, a nice time to be a video game fan in. It's, like, hit after hit after hit, so...
It definitely makes this part of the year more fun for me, because I like being able to make a Game of the Year list that features games mostly from this year. It just feels right, probably because that's how all the other outlets do it, or most of the big outlets. But last year I think especially was like a backlog year for me, and a few big hits came out. Obviously Elden Ring, but
was that last year? Yeah,
early last year.
It was much longer ago.
It was the Elden Ring God of War year.
Yeah,
but yeah, having just a bunch of games come out that were high caliber and high quality. I feel like we leaned on, I know we leaned a lot more into topics this last year, these last 50 episodes, because I was in my last year of school and my job was getting closer and closer to its end date. And so like the topics were a lot easier for us to kind of be able to jump in with a little less research time and stuff. And we could just kind of go in and talk. But I think we had some really fun topics that we came up with that we did. And sometimes those are my favorite and lead to the most interesting conversations I think of, when you can kind of talk about, you can get a little meta with the hobby. Yeah. So our most popular episode you referenced is literally like double. Yeah. I think the downloads of the next most popular, which is crazy.
Yeah. Cause I was gonna, like, we have the stats, but most of the stats are kind of uninteresting because it's all just the same episode. Basically, it's like, because I had sent like Delaney and Aubrey screenshots of that breakdown or whatever. And
the Spotify one, yeah.
And it was like, hey, your top episode was the Cozy Games one, and it was streamed 999% more than our other episodes, and like 64% of our new listeners started with that episode. And it was just kind of like one of those cool, like interesting, like it's fun to kind of get the stats side of it, I think. So
yeah, it kind of makes me wonder about like retention. And they jump in the first episode they listen to. I'm not on it. It's you and Aubrey and Delaney. And then they're like, oh, this is a pretty fun trio. I like these kind of cozy games or chill topics. And then I don't remember what the next episode was that came right after it. But it's like probably drastically different.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor was the next one.
So I don't know. I mean, ultimately it's our show. We do what we enjoy doing. We make it because we like it, but it is thinking about it from like a growth perspective. It's like, how does that to the listener? Is that jarring? Is it nice having that variety?
Yeah.
I mean, we do try to have Aubrey and Delaney and some of them on as a little bit more consistent guests.
Yeah.
Just because,
it's easier to corral them.
They're here. Yeah. But also I do like getting Aubrey's perspective on episodes because she is a very different gamer from you and I for the most part.
Yes. Like a lot of our taste in games overlaps pretty heavily. And so it's like, it's nice to bring in like we both listen to a lot of gaming podcasts as well. And so, the one that comes to mind for me is like Kind of Funny, because that's probably the one I listen to the most consistently. And I enjoy their episodes where they'll have like Joey on, or somebody who comes from gaming for like, hey, my tastes are completely different than the average person that is part of Kind of Funny. It's always kind of an interesting perspective, because I remember we all watched the Game Awards a couple weeks ago. And just like, we didn't watch it with like Delaney and Aubrey, but they were watching it at the same time. And I've had a conversation, like Delaney has been like, man, that was like, what were they doing? Why do they call it the Game Award? Just like somebody who is not at all really plugged in. I think she's played 2 games this year, like Diablo 4 and
Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Yeah, I guess Disney Dream 3 games. Cult of the Lamb, I think, was the other game she played. This is somebody who is not plugged into the gaming side of things, and it's nice to hear that perspective sometimes,
Off the top of your head, do you have, just thinking back, an episode that stands out in your mind, or some favorite episodes that we did, like for you personally, that you would say, yeah, that was a really either fun idea, glad we got to do that, or a fun time when we actually were sitting down recording it, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that a question, or like, are you asking? Like,
I'm asking you.
Okay.
It might be a question that somebody else asks later.
Okay. So I think there are definitely multiples that stand out. The one that comes to mind the most for me is when we went back and re-ranked 2019's Game of the Years, because I think that might have been the first like level playing field year that we did a Game of the Year list.
Yep.
But at the time, like, there was a lot of stuff that like we hadn't gotten to, because that year was also pretty big game wise. And so going back and looking at it through the lens of like, okay, it's been 4 years. I've picked up more games on sale and played through them, and they came out that year. Like I hadn't played Control yet.
Right.
And Control is an amazing game. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like were I to re-rate 2019, like Control would definitely be in it. And it wasn't even on my list last time. So I thought that was just a really fun one for me personally. And then there was, and I could be wrong, so cut this out if I am, but I think this was the year Jay came on with his game prepared for both of us. I think he came on to a neighborhood watch and like prepared a game I was supposed to hate, but also like I didn't because I had fun. So
yeah, that was in April. It looks like, yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty cool one, and like I'm not gonna rank our guests in terms of favorite, but
right.
Anytime that we have like guests on, like I always think it's cool to get like their perspectives, like Matt Bliss, Jared from Play Along, like all of these people throughout the year.
Yeah, we definitely like kind of relaxed the scheduling side of interviews this year. A lot of that was just because of my life being crazy, but the ones that we did have, I thought were all really good, really great guests to get to know and to chat with. And I think they all had like slightly different flavors to them because everybody's different.
Yeah,
but they were all good, high quality. I think looking back at some of the episodes we did this year, going back and talking about Star Wars games, that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. That was a good one.
Doing our slightly more serious conversation around like toxicity when Diablo 4 had you down back in, when was that? August?
Yeah. Diablo 4 fans specifically.
Right. Yeah, the community. So yeah, I thought our Starfield episode was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talking about, and this maybe sounds kind of cynical or negative, but talking about like such a high profile game that we all had different levels of enjoyment out of, we talk about Bloodborne and it's both of us talking about how great it is and how much we love it, which is fine. That's fun. Those conversations are fun. But when you can talk about a game that has that much kind of hype behind it, but then the conversation, everybody's kind of coming at it from a different perspective and a different level of enjoyment. I always find that really interesting.
Yeah.
Then just doing an episode on Liza P and getting to say P organ multiple times. That's
always a good one.
Highlight of the year. Time. Yeah. I mean, looking back, it's pretty.
Yeah.
We've made some podcasts this year. So alongside the podcast.
Yeah.
Framing this as like looking back over the year and not necessarily an episode number milestone like it is for the podcast. But how do you feel about YouTube?
Yeah, it's been like I think this year has definitely gone way better than the previous year,
right?
Or not way better, but like we've seen way more growth. The first year of doing YouTube, it was a pretty small. We'd put something out and get like a few views, and it would slowly like accumulate some over time, usually, but. It wasn't anything that was like going crazy, other than the time that we ranked From Software games, which, for us back then, it was like, oh man, like it got over like, I remember when it was just like
views.
It got over like 100 views. Like that's really awesome. And like we had a few videos this year that I thought just production value wise felt way, way better. I definitely feel like I had learned a lot from doing YouTube video editing for like a couple years at this point,
Right.
We had some success with like, I made a Destiny 2 video about what you need to play the different content in Destiny 2. It's so confusing because they don't just like, they keep selling, like they keep making new bits of the game and selling them, and it's like, well, how do I play this thing? And it's like, well, here's how you get that. And also they bundle it into a bunch of different things. And so it's like, which one is actually the best to buy if you're new? So apparently a lot of people also had struggles with that because that video did very well. And all of the YouTube shorts that we made from that have also like done very well.
I know. I saw people commenting on one like this last week because I guess the game is free on Epic.
Yeah, the Epic Game Store, at least this week or last week, made like the Legacy Collection for Destiny 2. Like they gave it away for free. And so it's like that has blown up again. So that was cool. We did the Assassin's Creed rankings that Andrew did, I thought were, not only has it done very well, but also I thought it was a very good video.
Yeah.
And then just we did another one about, is it worth like playing Diablo 3 this year? You know, Diablo 4 came out. How does Diablo 3 hold up? And so that one has done very well, and I thought it was a pretty good video. Not that our other ones aren't good videos, but those ones are, it was nice to see success with some of those videos.
Yeah, YouTube is so much more of a like roller coaster than compared to podcasts, like watching the growth. Mm-hmm. Like the podcast is kind of very just steady, incremental, like as more people discover the show, the numbers, you know, go up. There's a few episodes, like the Cozy Game is one that like gets a big spike for some reason. But YouTube, it's like one video, 20,000 views. Yeah. One video, 5. Yeah. And it's like, I guess, but looking at just the channel overall, yeah, I agree. I think the quality of the videos, I think we really stepped it up this year. I think we kind of found a clearer target as far as like quality and structure. And then if you just look at pure subscribers, I don't remember when exactly it was that we hit 100, but that felt like a really, really big deal, which it is and was. But we're like a couple people away now from 400. So
398. So if you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed yet,
help us out.
Get us to 400.
But if you look at that as just like percentage wise, that measurement of growth of going from 100 to 400, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
So it is sometimes discouraging to look on there and see like the last couple videos we put out, like just kind of getting, you know, low numbers of views. But then when you look at the channel overall, some of those heavy hitter videos you just mentioned are kind of carrying the weight of all the ones that are underperforming.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like one of those things too, where it would be nice to see it just go like crazier and crazier. But it's also like, in the past month, we've gotten like almost 16,000 views on the videos, which is nice, you know, like, we're not, I mean, sure, it'd be nicer if we were successful enough at it where it's like, we can monetize, we're getting like ad revenue, we're getting millions of views, blah, blah, blah. I don't think either of us, you know, like that would be cool. I don't think either of us is sitting here being like, that's like gonna happen.
Right. That's not our target necessarily. Yeah.
Like it's more so just like, no, we enjoy doing this. It's fun. Be nice to make some money, but you know, that's more of like a Patreon thing down the road than because I don't know. YouTube seems like one of those types of things where it's just like, unless you're getting millions of views per thing, I don't know if you really make good money off of it.
Yeah, no, it can't be your sole source of income. It has to be a method of directing people where they can support you or just one of your many revenue streams.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's been cool to see the growth there, like you said, and to get to try some new things and to, you know, shift a little bit kind of what we were doing and, you know.
Well, because we've been podcasting for 5 years almost at this point now, or maybe it's legit 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's 2019 when LPF was...
That was like the first full year.
Was getting... Right. I think 2020 was the first full year. I think I posted the batch of episodes that I'd been holding on to like mid 2019 or late like August 2019. So it was like the back end of 2019. And then 2020 was the first full year. So we've been podcasting a long time. We've kind of got that down. Like we tweak things here and there. You know, we adjust some things. But like YouTube, we're both still it's still pretty new territory as far as like, what do we want to do? What can we do? What works? How do we measure success? All those kind of things are still relatively new. So like we're already right now readjusting kind of what we want to do with our content, coming up with clearer, not marketing, but just like clearer identities for what kind of content we're making there and how to recognize it, and like kind of batching things into more of like a series structure instead of it just being like a scatter shot. Well, this week it's a Marvel Snap video, and then next week it's a whatever came after that. Who knows? We're going to try to have a little bit more of like, okay, this is part of this series and this is part of this series. And it's still going to allow us to not pigeonhole ourselves into only talking about like Destiny and Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But it hopefully will keep things a little bit more cohesive, and also like, oh, if you enjoyed this video, we also have these other ones that are similar that you might like as well, instead of like, oh, you came here for Assassin's Creed, that's the only one we have so far, you know?
Exactly. And, you know, just kind of like, it's a very different medium.
Yes.
I guess like podcasting, you're competing, like a gaming podcast like ours is competing with the likes of, you know, IGN's podcast and Kind of Funny and, you know, GameSpot and MinMax and all of these other ones, but also a lot of it, I guess the vibes I always get from the podcasting space is like, hey, we're looking for something that is not necessarily the big one, you know, like it's more of an everyman sort of thing of like you have a gaming podcast, sure, IGN does, but I'd rather listen to like a smaller gaming podcast or something, you know, versus YouTube where it's like you put out a review for XYZ game and it's like, you're competing with IGN and GameSpot and all the big ones, and it's like finding the niche of like on YouTube is a lot different and I think more difficult than it is in the podcasting space, because the podcasting space is, at least in my perspective, a little bit more open and welcoming to like, hey, like we're doing something similar to these other big things, but like we are welcome in the space versus, and like there, like we see growth versus, you know, like trying to jump in on the YouTube side of things where it's like, okay, everyone is already doing this. You know, how do we stand out on the YouTubes? Yeah. And also we're not, you know, paying some intern, or we're not paying anybody like IGN is paying somebody to like professionally make their videos. It's just kind of like, we're doing it as a hobby.
Yeah. And people just come to YouTube for such a wide, for like some people only see YouTube as a, how do I replace this part in my car service? Like YouTube is just, there's just, it's gotten to be so massive. So there's definitely room to find your niche, but it's definitely trying to find it has been interesting and I would say pretty rewarding. I mean, whenever we put out a new video, especially if it's one after we've kind of had these conversations about like, how do we shake it up? What's the next step? And then we put out like our next video in that step and it's like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's really good. It's really satisfying to see it all come together. And like that Assassin's Creed video, that was probably that was definitely like the biggest video I've done so far. Yeah. As far as like pulling it together, writing the script, the length, all that. I think I looked at it, the Cyberpunk video that just came out is like a page shorter, I think, than my Assassin's Creed script was. I was like, man, this one feels like it's getting pretty long too. Yeah. But it didn't quite beat it. And it's not that I'm trying to reach like a page count or anything, but I am trying to just, now that I've finished school, the job thing's done, whatever, I have a little bit more energy and free time to pour into that. And so, like the creative side. Yeah, I'm trying to just kind of like let it flow and see what happens. So I'm excited, obviously, to see what the podcast does, but I'm really excited to see YouTube, mostly probably just because it is that new, like that newer, more, we're experimenting a lot more over there. Whereas the podcast is like, just kind of steady as she goes, you know?
Yeah, like we have found what we enjoy doing and what makes it fun for us on the podcast side. And so it's like, well, we don't necessarily like, we're not trying to change up a whole lot here because it's like, we changing it up. It's like, is that even the same show anymore?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Was there anything else you want to say, or you want to roll into this what I feel like is going to be pretty substantial list of questions.
I feel like the stuff that I would say is probably like ending of the show stuff, where it's like thanks to the listeners and stuff. So cool. I feel like we can
do that at the end. All right. Well, then with that, let's go ahead and roll into some listener questions. All right, so the way we did this is we reached out to our community on Discord. And if you want to be part of that, link is in the description. Feel free to join. If we do things like this in the future, you can be a part of it. But what I did back in November was I sent out a message. I created a channel, sent out a message asking for people's questions. They could be anything podcasting related, gaming, food, whatever. It's just, hey, ask us what you want to know, and we will go through these questions on our 100th episode to be a little bit special, unique kind of episode. We haven't really ever done this before.
Yeah.
So I remember back when we were doing Level Playing Field, we would always like ask people to send us questions, and we like never got any. Yeah. So this is a much better method where you can kind of like let people do it on their own time in Discord, as opposed to like writing an email to a podcast.
Yes.
We're learning as time goes on. Yeah. So I'm just going to go through them in the list that they were received, which means it's going to be like a group of questions from one person, then the next person, etc. So kicking it off, we have John Haig. He left us 4 questions and a silly bonus one that I may or may not read, but if I don't read it and you want to hear it, go join the Discord.
Yeah.
So his first question for us is favorite game and favorite topic we've covered on the show.
Yeah, so I think my favorite topic, at least, and some of this is recent memory and bias, I really enjoyed the like going back to 2019 and like covering that again. I thought that was a lot of fun. So like doing our game of the year for 2019 is probably my favorite topic. Favorite game is tough because I mean, I feel like the easy cop-out answer is Bloodborne. Just because it's probably my favorite game.
Yeah.
So I feel like that one's probably my favorite game that we've covered on the show. But I feel like the one that maybe had the best, I don't know, I thought we had a lot of interesting conversation around like Sekiro or like Bloodborne, like you said, like it's their favorite game, but it was a lot of us just, hey, this game is awesome. Versus Sekiro, where I thought we had a much more interesting conversation about it because of just the differences of opinions that we both have about it.
Right.
So, or the Plague Tale one. The Plague Tale one is also, I thought, one of our best episodes.
That might be my answer, actually, the Plague Tale, because we covered both games in one episode, and I had fun editing. Like, I edited in clips to show the differences and the accents and stuff. Yeah, that was a really fun one. And then topic's tougher for me, but I really do like what you brought up of going back and redoing the game of the year list for a year, basing it on what we've played now.
Yeah. Now that we've had time to play these games.
Yeah. So I might steal your answer there.
Cheater. Just edit it so that it looks like you came up with it first.
His next question is, favorite superhero? Why is it Spider-Man? So this one's quick for me because it is Spider-Man for me. And why? I feel like I've talked about it on any content that Spider-Man's been involved, but just like it's childhood nostalgia, but then it's the what makes the character great about balancing his, 2 lives. It's just, I feel like grown with me, my deeper appreciation for him, for Spider-Man and Peter Parker as a character. And then now we just live in such a time where we have like so much great Spider-Man content that it's really fun to be a Spider-Man fan. So I'm more curious to hear your answer to this because it's probably not Spider-Man.
Yeah, I don't think it is Spider-Man. This one is a tough one because I don't have like deep-seated nostalgia, I don't feel like, for any character, any superhero. I have enjoyed the Marvel movies. I enjoy the Batman movies, especially like Christopher Nolan's.
Yeah.
Grew up watching, like the animated Justice League and Batman and all of those. But like thinking through like, okay, who is like a character that I am just like really into? I don't know. Like I really enjoy Thor in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like just off the top of my head, that's probably like the one that I think like I think his arc is interesting. And also just like I think that I'm blanking on his name of the actor who
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth, I think, does a very good job of portraying Thor. But also, like that answer could easily change next week. Yeah, because I don't, like I said, I don't feel like there's one where I'm just like, ooh, like that is de facto my favorite superhero.
Right.
Fantasy character or, like whatever. I'm sure I could come up with some different ones, but
I think it's interesting that the superhero you came up with is kind of like the most fantasy leaning Marvel character.
Yeah, it's basically like, hey, what if Norse mythology was just real though?
Exactly. His next question is, can pineapple go on pizza?
Can it? Sure. Should it? I don't think so. I personally do not. Now, to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of just pineapple in general, but I do not like it on my pizza. I think the thing that I dislike the most about it, though, is that there's enough people that like it that it becomes one of those de facto, like, oh, we're getting pizzas. Here is the pineapple pizza. Like pineapple and ham pizza or whatever. And it's like, that's fine, but like, did you get a pepperoni though? Because like,
yeah, it should never be the only pizza that's got like that is ordered.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, here's a plain cheese pizza. And then the second one with toppings is pineapple. Like, how dare you? So that's the part I think that bothers me the most about it. Like, if you like pineapple on your pizza, go for it. Good for you. But should it be on there? I don't know. I don't think so.
One of my favorite clips from Level Playing Field is when we all just kind of discovered each other's opinions on this and had a little very clippable argument about it. I am on the side that pineapple can go on pizza. I love a good Hawaiian pizza, but I like pineapple. So, but that's why Dylan and I don't speak during the week.
Exactly.
Opposite sides of the pineapple pizza debate. Next question. What is/was your favorite closing game segment on the show? Man, this is tough because we've done so many.
Yeah. Well, and I don't have one that I can think of. I want to shout out Jay's because like Jay did a closing section or closing game, and that was a lot of fun. Because normally one of us is doing it, and so we don't compete against each other very often.
Yeah.
Other than just kind of like you were competing against the nature of my game. So I do want to shout that out. But yeah, just thinking of like what was the one that I enjoy the most, I guess, is the one where I think we've named it, I got it from Google, where I get a bunch of like lists that are online where it's like, what's the top game of 2019? And I find like IGN's list and I find GameSpot's list and I find, whatever, and I put them all together. And then I like, here it is. And I present that, and it's kind of like we do it in a Family Feud kind of style almost.
Yeah.
That's the game I enjoy the most, just because I think it is the most fun and funny, because there's always like
rage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, obviously, like best game of 2019 wouldn't be as crazy because it's like all of the lists I would be pulling are all of the big outlets. But then we do one where it's like best Bloodborne weapons or whatever, and it's like just random people on the internet making a list, and that's where it gets fun for me, because it's always, there's some big upsets, and I think it's always interesting to me. So those are probably my favorite ones that we do.
Yeah, I enjoy.
You're just like, I hate the games.
No, I mean, like, it's a cop-out answer being like, I enjoy all of them, but I like prepping them. I think it's fun, and like sitting there conniving, rubbing my hands together, going, oh, they're never going to get this, you know?
Yeah.
And then I like competing in them. Obviously, I think it's always fun when Phil and Eric are on and they're competing against each other, just because of the dynamic of their friendship and how they just like rage at each other. But yeah, I mean, Synonym Roll is a classic go-to. We've experimented a little bit this year with I like the one that you've been doing recently, where you pick 3 games and you're trying not to go over 200 Metacritic score. That one, I really like the concept. It's a little slow because you have to look everything up. Yeah. Which after editing and everything,
the magic
it
of
flows pretty
fixed.
quick. But in the moment, there's a lot of downtime. But I like the concept a lot. So yeah, those are some highlights. Let's see. I guess we'll go ahead and move on to the next set of questions here. Speaking of Jay, he submitted, looks like 3 questions. The first one is, what creature / monster / animal from a video game would you like as a real life pet?
Interesting.
Huh.
Creature, monster, animal. Okay. I was going to say, like, there's not like a robot option where we could say BD1 or
right,
something.
BD1. He's not a pet, he's a friend.
Yes, he is our friend.
Yeah, this one's...
I am not a huge like Pokemon person, so I'm not going to pick off a Pokemon. But I am a huge Monster Hunter person, and what if Pokemon was cooler Monster Hunter Stories person? And so that is basically, you make your all like the Monster Hunter monsters like your pets and friends. And so to me, one of the cool ones is always like the Rathalos, which is basically their big like dragon. That's always a fun one. That could be, if it was real life pet, like only that one specifically. Like if it was just like, do these exist in the real world? It's like, no, I don't think we want that. But real life pet, sure. A little like dragon you can fly around on. Be pretty cool.
Yeah. Man. I feel like I'm trying to think too.
Yeah. What's the dog from Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah. Torgal. I'm like, I'm trying to think of something that's not just like a dog or something that like I would actually want that's like unique and from video games. But to be honest, like I have 2 dogs now and I have 2 kids, like 5 and 1, and so I really don't want anything else that I have to take care of right now.
I don't want more responsibility.
I'm like, what pet could I have that would help me with these things and not just require me to like feed it and bathe it?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Torgal from Final Fantasy definitely comes to mind, just recency bias. I also thought of BD1, but was like, yeah, it's kind of demeaning to call him a pet. But yeah, so it's not a very interesting answer, but I guess I'll go with that. His next question was, which of the 2 of you is a better cook?
It's a good question. I don't know that we've ever competed.
Are we equally terrible?
Maybe.
Because I don't really cook, especially when I just don't really cook. I was going to say that like before I got married and had to feed myself, but even back then my diet was really pathetic.
Yeah, it's more of just like, what is the easy thing? I don't know. Maybe that's an episode like 150 thing. We'll come back and report, where it's like we'll both make like a video game themed
dish. Yeah.
And like bring it to one of these like friend group gatherings and be like, okay, you guys have to judge which of these 2 is better.
Yeah. I'm the want to make it quick and easy kind of person. I don't enjoy cooking. Yeah. And I don't enjoy cleaning up after it. I don't like, some people really, that's their zen, is, creating this delicious masterpiece. And, for me, I'm like, no, I'm just hungry.
Yeah.
And I want to eat. And I'll dip some chicken nuggets into some honey mustard and be fine, but I do greatly appreciate having married a woman that can cook, because it makes my quality of life a lot better. Mm-hmm. It's definitely better for my kids that they're getting to eat like good food.
Yep. So yeah, I don't mind cooking. Like it's just one of those things where it's like, when I'm weighing, like at the end of a day, I'm weighing like, do I want to spend like 2 hours making this and I know it's going to be good, or would I rather something easy? I generally am like, I'd rather spend that 2 hours doing something else, and here's a quick, easy thing.
Yeah. His last question is, what is your favorite version of Spider-Man?
That is a tough one.
That is really tough, especially these days, because especially now that like the multiverse and Miles are like mainstream, because Spider-Verse characters are great. Yuri Lowenthal's interpretation of, and like the Sony Spider-Man, I think is really good. Obviously, Tom Holland kills it. It was seeing him in Civil War for the first time was a super big deal for me when that happened. Yeah. So this one is really tough for me.
Yeah. I feel like I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I feel like he's like, the movies he was in are unfortunate because I don't think any of them were good.
No.
But I did really like his vibe as Spider-Man personally.
Yeah, he was a great Spider-Man. People complain that he was too cool to be Peter Parker, because Peter Parker's supposed to be kind of a dork.
Yeah.
But I think the characters kind of evolved away from that a little bit. Like Tom Holland's not really, just nerd culture has changed. Like being smart and whatever is not going to get you just like thrown in a garbage can like it did when Spider-Man was originally created. So the character has kind of had to change. Yeah, if we're talking Peter Parker, I think I would give it to Tom Holland just slightly above some of the others. If we're talking about favorite like Spider-Man, Peter B. Parker from the Spider-Verse movies, like I relate to him so much because he is like the divorced, eats pizza and drinks beer and has like a beer gut and won't admit that he's out of shape.
Yep.
Like that. I really appreciate that version of the character as I get older. Oh man. Next, we had some questions from Emily Bateman. First one is, favorite game that you've played with a guest, or rather favorite game Dylan has come up with.
See, people like
specifically your games.
People like my games.
I think we already kind of touched on that because I talked about that Metacritic one. I think that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, my favorite one to force other people to play is I got it from Google. Again, I just really enjoyed that game. Or the prices. I don't know. For the next Christmas episode, I've considered putting together like not the one that will be out, but like a year from now. But yeah, I am looking at wanting to do, like I got it from Google thing, but then also like Price is Right, where I just am like, hey, here is this ridiculous like Christmas decoration. How much do you think it costs?
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty fun.
So
yeah, your Price is Right that you did
with Animal
Crossing back in Level Playing Field. That was still people still talk about that to this day. Her next question is, if you could eat only one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be? Can be broad like Italian food or very niche.
Mine is definitely Asian food.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Asian food.
Yeah, that's good.
Or Mexican. Like Mexican is always a solid thing, but I feel like Asian food, like Chinese food, if I have to narrow it down slightly.
Yeah, it's tough. Like niching down, I probably would just go pizza. It's like I never get bored of pizza. Yeah. And you can put different things on pizza to get some variety in there.
True.
You got bread, dairy, usually some meat. You can convince yourself it's maybe healthy. If we're going broad, like type of food, I feel like I would go with kind of like American bar food.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really tough because I love Chinese food and Mexican too. But like usually when I'm craving, like nothing hits as hard when it hits for me than like a really good burger.
That is true.
Or
that
like,
is.
You know, something in like that bar food kind of category of like chicken strips or you know, just that real kind of simple, classic American, some good crispy, salty French fries. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, if I had to like drill down, I feel like if it wasn't just like a broad thing, but it was like what it would probably be like a cheeseburger, hamburger thing and fries. And like, because there's so much variety you can get there too, of like just weird stuff you'd put on the burger, different ways they make it. So
getting hungry now.
Yeah. Get a burger on the way home or something.
I know. Let's see. Next question. Her last question that she posted is, thing that surprised you about doing this second podcast? How much easier it is without all those freeloaders. It's an interesting question, thinking about like, the differences between this show and the one before. And I feel like it's so iterative that that's not really surprising, but just things I've noticed of like, because we did that show, so much of like, we were able to hit the ground running with this show, and it felt just like so much higher quality out the gate, and we had a better idea. I guess something that surprised me a little bit is just how it's still, even with us trying to create something that was sustainable, there were still times where it felt like it was spinning off its axles, and we just kind of had to reel it all back in and get back on track. But that's just life. Yeah, because it's definitely still, like takes time, takes effort.
I'm trying to think if there's anything that's like been like a huge surprise to some of this. I mean, I feel like some of it too is just like how much easier recording in person is. Like, even though we haven't, a majority of Level Playing Field, if not all of it, for me was like distance. Like we'd occasionally have the in-person ones.
Well, and this show was too when it started, I think.
Yeah. And so this one has been like, but just kind of like having not done a ton of like in-person recordings, and usually when we were doing them, they were like an unhinged, like fun episode. Now that we've gotten a chance to like do almost a year and a half of like, at least we still record online often, but having the chance to like do more in-person stuff is like, oh, this is a lot easier.
Yeah, I like it. I like the vibe. I like, we can, especially now with this new setup where we've kind of got something a little more permanent, just coming in, pressing the button and starting. It's nice. Yeah, we had like a nice little kind of system of like midday on Fridays was like a perfect quiet time in my house. We could record an episode, and then just the second baby came and life changed. And I was like, well, that doesn't work anymore. So we went back to online, but now we've got a new system where we can hopefully do most of just the me and you episodes, and maybe me and you and guests in person, and then just do online when we have like remote guests, or I'm sure something will come up now and then. But I think the quality and the just like, I feel like I say vibe a lot when talking about this, but just like the vibe of it is better. It feels, there's just something about being actually in the same room. Next question we got came from Dave Jackson. He said, what game could Andrew destroy Dylan in, and vice versa?
It's a good question.
I could destroy Dylan in probably any fighting game.
Yeah, I was going to say, name a fighting game. You're going to win that.
Smash Bros. Definitely Dragon Ball Z. Your Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur. Mm-hmm. I don't think he'd stand a chance. But on the flip side, I know back in the day you would destroy me in like any kind of first person shooter, because I just like didn't have access to them for the longest time.
Yeah. Like I definitely feel like any of the old school Halos, I feel pretty confident, just because I played so much of those as a kid. And by the time you kind of hopped in, you had just like the Spanish version of Halo 3. And so I don't think you really played much Halo until like Reach, or
I really
even
it kind of dismissed me completely till Infinite. Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about like those. I also think that I could do like some of the like Fortnite. I could probably do decently. Like there's a lot of games that I just think that I could probably do all right in, just based on familiarity.
Right.
That is, if you put any time into it, we would be way more evenly matched. So
yeah, exactly.
Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original. I definitely could kick your ass in that.
Yeah. I don't think I'd stand a chance.
Top 25, man.
Yeah, I see you brought your trophy with you.
Yes.
Our next couple of questions come from Starlord07, and he said, if you could remove one character from Marvel Snap, who would it be? If you would have asked me this earlier in the year, it would have been Galactus.
Ah, okay.
But we've gotten a lot more releases since he was a menace, and man, Alioth right now is
I'm still
just the worst feeling card.
And that's so annoying to me that like people just were like, but it feels bad. I don't know. What we're talking about is recently they nerfed Alioth, but they basically in their little write-up, they were like, so technically he's fine according to the stats. Like he's not even like a winning card. Like it's more so like, yeah, he's like 40% of the time like win rate or something like that. So it's not even like he's that good. It's just people complain so much that they nerfed him. And so I'm a little salty about that because I'm like, just play around him. Just get over it. I think the one that I hate the most is, I'm trying to think of one that like always kind of comes out of left field.
See, I appreciate the cards that like come out of left field and surprise me. It's when I know I'm going to lose because the only play that is left is for me to play here, and then their Alioth will delete my cards, and then that's the end of the game. It's just like, it just feels bad. I can appreciate a Juggernaut you weren't expecting, like moving your cards. It's like, well, I haven't seen a Juggernaut in like 3 months. That's crazy. Good on you for throwing that in your deck. That's one thing.
Yeah. I think Shadow King might be mine.
Oh, I love just playing Shadow King.
Well, I play a lot of cards that like benefit from scaling.
Yeah.
And then like I'll get hit with that like late game Shadow King or something like that. That or like Green Goblin, Hobgoblin. Like those are just annoying to me.
Yeah. His next question is, if you had to put your co-host into a video game as himself, which game would it be and what role would they play?
Is this assuming that like, I mean, as yourself makes it sound like it's just you have the skills that you have.
Yeah, just you as who you are in a video game.
Interesting. Pretty much no From Software game, because you would just...
Well, see, what I'm thinking is like, maybe I would put you in Jedi Survivor as the robot bartender.
Oh, right.
You know, like not as Cal.
Yeah.
But just as some...
Like you don't have to be the hero. You're just like you're hanging out at the cantina.
Yeah, so like I put you in Elden Ring as like the blacksmith or something. Yeah. It's like, welcome back. I see you have some upgrade materials there.
Right.
Let me repeatedly hit this sword over and over, and your weapon will be stronger somehow.
Maybe like Spider-Man, but you're not Spider-Man. You're just like, you're a guy who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and so you help him out with like the Googling and the
guy in the chair.
Yeah. The only part of Spider-Man 2 I've seen is where his friend is flying the like drone or whatever. Like you could be that guy who's like, yeah, I'm going to pilot this drone.
That'd be pretty cool. I don't know if I'm smart enough to do some of the stuff that they do in that game, but it's also just like made up science, not real science.
Exactly.
So
exactly. You're in the game. It's just whatever they need for the plot. Whatever Spider-Man needs you to do, you can do.
I put you in Destiny 2 as like a vendor that explains what you need to buy.
Yeah.
And where to get it. And
it's just like, what are you looking for? Okay, you're going to go down the hall, take a right. This guy is who you need to talk to.
Yeah. Put you as like the information, like the info booth for new players.
Right. You want to play this raid? Well, you need to buy this expansion pack.
Exactly. Next we got a question from Ryan. And first of all, he replied to the least favorite character in Marvel Snap and said, "Why is it Alioth?"
Oof.
So,
oof.
This was before the nerf too.
Yeah.
But then his actual question was, if you could move any gaming franchise over to a new developer, which franchise would it be and who would be developing it? And I think that's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. Like, part of me wants to say I would love to see like Halo and Call of Duty's developers just swap for like a generation and just kind of see like what Treyarch could come up with in the Halo universe and what 343 Studios could come up with as like a Call of Duty thing.
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting.
It would definitely be interesting.
It would chaos. It would either be like fantastic or everyone universally would hate both of those games.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that could be interesting, but then I don't know developers like this is recency, but it's like I'd love to see Larian, who is telling a really good story in Baldur's Gate 3. I'd love to see them tell a story in the Mass Effect universe.
Oh yeah.
I'd love basically anyone else to do something with Mass Effect other than BioWare, because that BioWare's not got a good track record recently.
Yeah, something I think would be interesting, and you see some of it with like the Crypt of the Necrodancer doing like a Zelda game. Seeing like indie developers take on big IPs, I think is a cool concept. Like what could the Dead Cells doing Castlevania actually, but that's like similar genres. I'd love to see something like that, like Cult of the Lamb take on just they make a Splinter Cell game or something, like just something crazy like that. But something that we talked about last year when I was playing Destiny like heavily with you was that their world designs and level design and stuff and environment design made me want to see them do some sort of a like Souls-like type game, because a lot of the stuff that they put in their games feels like it could be right at home in a FromSoft sort of setting. And so I was like, man, it'd be cool to see Bungie's take on a wildly different genre with how good their gameplay feels in first-person shooters. Maybe that wouldn't translate to third-person, but I would love to see them make one of those typical, like just kind of twisted, gross, dark, gothic type worlds that most Souls-likes are set in, and then build around that. Yeah.
I'd also love to see, like, speaking of Souls-likes, I'd love to see like the Monster Hunter team make a Souls-like, like a just true like open world like Souls-like, because they already, in my opinion, have like the boss battle thing down very solidly. And I'd love, instead of it being like, okay, load into this map, go hunt the monster, load back out to the hub, blah blah blah,
like a more contiguous
thing as you go through a level and like string it together, a
lot more exploration baked in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that could be really cool. Also, I'd love to see anyone do anything with Majesty and Prince of Persia.
Ubisoft is doing something.
I know.
With Prince of Persia.
I know Ubisoft is doing something. Maybe that's the real answer. Maybe we want Skull and Bones to be given to literally anyone else.
Or maybe we just want to see any other like studio with some passion take any Ubisoft IP that we love. I would love to see an Assassin's Creed game made by anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like what, Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm not a Sonic fan, but like wasn't the most successful game of recent times. Pretty much like some other studio was like, hey, we'd really love to like make our own Sonic game in the
I can't speak to success as far as like, was it best selling or whatever, I don't know, but as far as people loving it, Sonic Mania was like a fan thing. It wasn't Sega. So
like it does work. There are benefits to doing some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's my answer. I want Prince of Persia to be given to the team that's remastering and remaking all of the Resident Evil games, so that they can remake the Sands of Time trilogy with the same care and love that they've remade the Resident Evil games with.
Capcom?
Yeah. So
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I would love to just see Bloodborne go to Blue Point, but like that's not that far off. That could actually happen, maybe. Who knows? next, we got a few questions from Katie Shesko, and she asked, which game would you want to live in?
It's a good question.
Yeah, and I'm taking this as you.
As me.
Yeah, you don't get to, you're not Monster the hero.
Hunter. Monster Hunter Girl World.
You want to live in Monster Hunter as just Dylan?
Well, number one, it's a T-rated game, so I'm pretty sure I've never seen anyone actually get killed in Monster Hunter. I think they only faint. So I think the danger would be low.
Gotcha.
Plus, like, you're all just kind of like exploring and having fun and like, hey, here's like bunch of food, bunch of like
there's good food in Monster Hunter.
Like, have you seen the spreads that they just bring out? And then, just kind of like, even if I wasn't a Monster Hunter, I could just be like helping them do their thing, So I think that would be kind of cool. Or any Star Wars game, but that's a cop out because that's just me saying the Star Wars universe.
Right. Yeah. This one's tough because most of the time, unless you're the protagonist, like, the worlds are awful.
Yeah.
Like, the world needs to be saved. And so that's why the player's saving it. I think it's
like Stardew Valley. I just want to.
I know. I was like, Animal Crossing. I don't know. I mean, Zelda, the like recent Zelda games would be okay if you were just like a villager and just like stayed in your village. Like, that wouldn't be too bad because Link is going to save the day. So
yeah. And it's also a T-rated game, so like I don't think the villagers actually die. So
yeah, so many of my favorite games have awful worlds.
Yeah,
it's like I would not want to live in Bloodborne or The Witcher or so many of these.
Yeah, so that's like the entire point of The Witcher is like everything sucks.
Yeah, Cyberpunk. Yeah, no, it's all awful.
Yep.
So I guess maybe I'm trying to think of like some maybe like smaller profile games that I've played that had like cool worlds. But yeah, so often it's like the world is just messed up.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd want to live in Lego Fortnite.
That could work. That could work.
Because then I'd just be a little Lego dude, just build my village. And yeah, when I get attacked, I just break and wake up in my bed.
I was going to say Mass Effect universe, but like after the situation with the Reapers has been dealt with and it's kind of back to normal or whatever. That'd be maybe cool.
And then her next question understands how difficult the last one was. And she asked, which game hero would you want to live as? So now you get the powers.
Yeah. Now. Still probably not a From Software game, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rough. Now I'm thinking maybe like Spider-Man, like the most recent Spider-Man games. What else? I was still not The Witcher, because being a Witcher that's still a rough life. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to go against Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Maybe like Sunset Overdrive. Like, I'm just trying to think of games that it seems like the world would be fun and having the hero's powers would be fun.
I feel like again, any Star Wars game, but that's, again, just like, it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool to live in the Star Wars universe. It'd be cooler if you were a Jedi.
If you were a Jedi. Yeah.
So like, yeah, that's a little bit of a cop out in my opinion, but I do think maybe still Monster Hunter. Like, I feel like that could be kind of like a cool, maybe Monster Hunter. What was it? Monster Hunter Stories. Where it's less like, instead of hunting the monsters, you're like collecting them.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of I was looking back at like the worlds of the games that I've played this year, and I'm like, all of these are kind of like not good. Like,
yeah,
all of the, like, even like Destiny 2, it's like, well, the hero, like my character is pretty well, like, has not experienced a bunch of bad stuff. Like, I guess it has experienced a bunch of bad stuff, but isn't dead. But there's also just a lot of, the entire universe is out to get you, basically. So it's a rough one.
We need to play more games like Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I would live in the Dreamlight Valley.
I would live on Animal Crossing, and I would be Tom Nook.
Then she asked, favorite Zelda game?
I have only beaten 2 Zelda games. So I will go first because I will give you some time to think. But my answer is still probably Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
I do like Breath of the Wild, but I think I like Twilight Princess as a game better. I sort of liked the exploration of the ship one, the boat one,
Wind Waker,
but it was also, I don't know, I didn't like it as much as the other two. So
yeah, I think on nostalgia and charm and the amount of times I've played it, my answer would have to be Wind Waker. But yeah, it's definitely Wind Waker. I mean, I really love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but there's just so much more wrapped into Wind Waker for me than there is in those newer games. So yeah, just pure favorite. That's got to be it. Then she asks, favorite video game soundtrack.
It's a good question, especially coming from her. Yeah, she is our friend that does the music of different video games on her flute. You can find her on Spotify.
Yes.
But I think my answers would either be, I love the Monster Hunter soundtrack. I think all of their songs are pretty cool because pretty much everything is a boss theme.
Yeah.
Most From Software games, especially Elden Ring, I really liked Elden Ring's like theme.
Yeah.
And how it played into the story or like the game itself. And then there was one more that I had and I'm losing it. Oh, Destiny 2. Destiny 2's music is very good. I don't know how it will be moving forward because the
composer's gone.
Yeah, their
like that lead composer. Yeah.
But it was the same guy who was, I think, doing the Halo soundtrack, which is another banger.
Yeah. My answer is not very interesting, but it has to be The Witcher 3.
Fair.
Just like when I think about
it's real music, it's just Polish music or Polish like medieval.
Yeah, are you saying that all the other music we've listed off is not real music?
I mean, fair. Fair.
I mean, The Witcher 3 introduced
yeah,
this side of the world to that kind of music. And also it's just a very good version of that style of music. And it's just, that's the soundtrack that I've listened to the most outside of the game, and hearing any song from that game more than any other soundtrack will get me to go play the game again.
Yeah.
So there's just something about it. Cause obviously I love Bloodborne's soundtrack. Red Dead Redemption 2 has great music for like the type of game that it is. Nier Automata obviously has some really good music, and Zelda has I listen to a lot of Zelda music outside of the game
Zelda's
too.
Solid.
I would listen to a lot of Zelda when I was studying and stuff, but I haven't replayed Breath of the Wild like 9 times like I've replayed The Witcher, and the music will just get me to go do that again. So
yeah, for sure.
So that has to be my answer. Next, we got a couple questions from Mr. Eric Almighty. He asked, what goals have you yet to accomplish for the show that you had in mind on day one?
That's a good question.
Deep question, yeah.
Yeah. Eric thinking hard about his questions.
Like, what were our goals day one? Our goals were to...
I know, I mean, it's hard too, because I feel like some of the things that on day one that we had in mind like have shifted over time. Like I know when we initially started it, we were like an interview a month, and we have shifted away from that just because logistically that was a nightmare.
And also like streaming was a core pillar of what we wanted to do with this brand. And then we're like, you know what? We don't really like, streaming's not our vibe.
No,
and
we don't
especially not consistently like this. So like, I think our goals, like the core that this was built around was just talk about what we want to talk about, not necessarily try to keep up with news and like the latest releases. And I feel like we've done that. Interview people, we've done that. We've met a lot of cool new people through that. And then, like you said, the moving target with, it's hard when the goal is like grow the thing.
Yeah,
and we're doing that.
I think that's the like sort of almost cop out answer is like, obviously we would love to see the show keep growing, and so we haven't hit all of the goals we would like to see for it. Like not necessarily because like we've just been failing to meet the goals. It's more so just like we would love to see this continue to grow. And every time we hit like a benchmark in like number of listeners or number of downloads or number of, subscribers on YouTube or whatever, it's like, well, I'd like to, okay, like that's cool. We got that one. I'd like to see it keep going,
Yeah. And I think we do probably for, it's good for us is we don't put like, okay, by the end of 2024, we need to have so many downloads or we need to have so many people join our Discord, or like we're not putting hard numbers on our goals, because ultimately like it's not our, we don't need it to sustain our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still more of a hobby we would love to see grow and potentially be profitable.
Yeah.
But right now it's like, especially with me finishing up school and doing everything that we had going on in our personal lives, it's like we can't put too many like lofty, strict goals on this project, because then that means we either have to like focus in and make them happen, or we'll be disappointed when they don't.
I feel like we approached this a lot differently, where I think, I don't want to say we didn't set big lofty goals for ourselves, but
right.
Like obviously we've still got that pie in the sky goal of like, it'd be really cool if it blew up big enough where we could both just be like, screw it, I'm quitting my day job and I'm just doing this. But I think like approaching it, our mindset was like, we want to like have fun and do this as a hobby and do this as like our fun thing. And that's not to say you're doing your stuff wrong if you don't approach it like that, but also it does make it a lot easier to just like have fun with it when you're not being like, oh, we have to hit these numbers, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to, we're just making stuff that we enjoy making. So
exactly. His next question is, if you both had the power to merge two gaming franchises together for a crossover, which ones would you choose?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I should have looked at these questions, or this question specifically beforehand. I think it'd be cool to see like a Diablo style, like Witcher, like a, like a going through witching things.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Bring like Monster Hunter, cross it over with some sort of like shooter, and you're like
just gunning down the monsters.
It turns into like a Borderlands-esque like looter shooter thing. There are a lot of games I'd love to just like, hey, do the Breath of the Wild thing.
Right.
Elden Ring was basically my Breath of the Wild, so it's like Souls-likes crossed over with Breath of the Wild, and that was the result. And so I'm like, what else could we just like put on top of the Breath of the Wild?
Yeah. I want to mix From Software games with Lord of the Rings Return of the King.
Ooh, yeah. Like almost not even like a gaming franchise, but just like, hey, Lord of the Rings, but make it FromSoft.
Make it a FromSoft game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be sick. Yeah, that's a good one.
What was it? Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. So like, I'm trying to think of like, I haven't read the Silmarillion. Is that it?
Yeah. I haven't read it
like
either.
Shadow of Morgoth or whatever, some big bad in the Silmarillion. And it is that.
Yeah. That's a good question. That might be something we could like dive into a little deeper as like a topic episode or something. Cause I'd like to actually do a little more poking around in like some of my favorite franchises. Cause I'm thinking like Darksiders and that's as far as I get. I'm like, where would I go with that? And so there's definitely some ideas out there.
Yeah, this may return as a full topic. Because I'm thinking of like I enjoy sort of like the BioWare style of RPG, or like even like the Baldur's Gate, like CRPG type of thing, where it's like you're doing stuff, but like there are all these like choices and like conversations and stuff, and I'm basically just like, I'd love like a big sprawling RPG, like a BioWare RPG, in just like any universe that I'm interested in. I'd love to see that in like the Diablo universe. I'd love to see that in the Warhammer universe. I'd love to just enough where it's like, I really like, this is my favorite style of game, and this is a universe that I am interested in. Make them together so that, like a Lord of the Rings sprawling RPG where I'm playing as a custom character where I'm exploring like, oh, and here's the Shire, and here's Gondor, here's
that'd be pretty awesome. And then we got a question from friend of the show, Caleb Van Ice, and he said, if you could get any guest on the show, who would it be?
Interesting.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's like, I think about, so for this show, obviously it'd be really cool to talk to like Miyazaki or somebody, or
Phil Spencer.
Yeah, I know you always bring up Phil Spencer. Like, that would be really fun and interesting. But like thinking about more of how we were pitching this as like people in the gaming community and other creators, it's like, I think I'd really enjoy talking to like Vati Vidya or Fightin' Cowboy.
Yeah, like a creator that you watch and listen to.
Yeah, like something. Some of the creators that have kind of inspired me to do this thing. It'd be fun to pick their brains and like hear how they got their start, and hear like Fightin' Cowboy talk about the first game he ever played back when he was a kid and like what got him into this, and now here he is like diving beyond their content and like actually getting to know, with the questions we like to ask in our interviews. I think that would be a lot of fun, and it would kind of still be true to the idea of what we were going for with this show. Like, obviously if an opportunity to talk to like Doug Bowser or somebody came up, I'm sure we would probably take it, be super like nervous the whole time. But
I just love, like, did you think he started working for Nintendo because like he wanted to work for Nintendo because his last name was Bowser, or do you think it's just circumstance?
I think Nintendo made him legally change it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's a good answer too. Cause now that I'm thinking about it in that way, I'm like, okay, who are the like people that I watch and enjoy watching that got me into like YouTube and podcasts and stuff? And it's like, okay, like some of the people over at like Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter, I think would be like cool to talk to. Or the guy who I watch who does like RimWorld like story playthroughs or whatever, Mr. Samuel Streamer, I'm like, he would be cool to chit chat about, because he's like just an average person who plays video games for a living,
exactly.
The Game Grumps,
Donkey,
yes. Donkey girlfriend reviews, like I mean, nothing is stopping us from just shooting a message to these people, but it's like, I know they're way more attainable probably than Doug Bowser or Miyazaki.
Right. But because if you shoot them a message, there's a good chance they're the ones that are going to leave you on red as opposed to their PR people.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
At least you got that far.
And we can't bother Miyazaki right now because he needs to finish the DLC.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He just needs to keep making games over there. The last question we got is from Joe, and he asks, when will you guys do a proper ranking of FromSoft's games? And I needed some clarification, so I asked him, meaning every single one of their games? He said, meaning you both have played all the games being ranked. So he's referring to some of our earliest like YouTube drama that we had in the comments of that video, because you hadn't played Demon's Souls and I haven't finished Dark Souls 1.
I haven't, and I hadn't beaten Sekiro at that time, and I still ranked it below Demon's Souls because I didn't like it.
Yeah, so he's referring to that, but I thought it would be funny if we just ranked every single FromSoft game.
Yeah, I was going to say,
having never played most of them.
The first 15 minutes are us just like, and Monster Hunter Diary, Poka Poka, Aru Village, or whatever for the Nintendo DS is my number 75.
Yeah, exactly. The first Armored Core, that one was probably pretty bad. I'll put it here. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure we'll revisit the FromSoft well at some point, taking that question probably more literally than it was intended.
I definitely can see us doing that, especially if eventually I pick up a PlayStation 5 and play Demon's Souls, and then eventually when I play
Armored Core
6, I think that at that point we would probably consider re-ranking some stuff, just because then we would have kind of that whole section done. But
yeah, like the modern era of FromSoft, like post Dark Souls FromSoft, yeah. Except for that one VR game they made that neither of us will ever play. Deracine, I think it's called. Yeah, so that was it. That was quite a list of questions we got. Thank you all so much for submitting those and making this episode what it was, and giving us a chance to talk about things like cooking that we don't normally talk about on our podcast. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun change of pace. Thank you all so much for listening to the show and being the reason that we're at episode 100, because I mean, we enjoy making it, but obviously if nobody at all was listening, we probably would stop, because that is kind of the point. So definitely couldn't do this without all the listeners. Definitely appreciate all the people in our Discord who kind of have become this little community that we fostered over there. Dylan, you had mentioned some closing things that you wanted to say.
I mean, you basically hit them all of just like, yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you if you are in any way that you support us on watching YouTube, liking, commenting, leaving us reviews, all of those kind of things that you do to support us. But even just listening, or just, downloading the occasional episode, it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Thank you for doing that. Because like you said, if we were just screaming into the void where nobody was hearing anything, we would just stop recording these conversations and still have them, but just not record them and spend time editing them and putting them up online. So
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for doing that. Thank you to all of the cool guests that we have had on in the past, 50 episodes, or just on the show in general.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you. And yeah.
Yeah. And so to close this one out, I will mention that as a bonus episode in your feed, there's also our annual Christmas special that just came out for this year. So the Super Bracket Bros Cinematic Universe has once again come together to argue about Christmas things. And so that is out. I hope everybody is enjoying the holidays. This comes out on Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope it's wonderful. Thank you all so much again for listening to the show. And we will catch you on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some great videos on our YouTube channel, including reviews, rankings, and other topics. We would really appreciate you checking it out. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the neighborhood, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to jump in our Discord server.
We hope to see you there. Links for everything are in the podcast description. Thanks again for listening, and remember, stay friendly, gamers.